Hello everybody, and welcome to Bob's World. And today we have a very special guest, Dr. Charles Stevens. Hello, tell us about your day.
Hi, I'm doing fine, fine.
All right, what is your profession?
I'm actually a licensed psychologist here in Florida.
Yeah, and how long have you been in psychology?
Actually, I've been practicing since 1984, so in private practice since 1994 here in Florida.
And what was your influence for getting into psychology?
Actually, it's kind of a strange story. I was in high school and took a psychology class and really enjoyed the idea of getting into people's heads and what caused human behavior. And also, it was interesting, the first week of class, I had watched a movie on television that weekend. Not a very good movie. It was Freud, John Huston film, black and white. But it talked about dream states and getting into behavioral patterns and what caused what. And I just was fascinated. So ever since that day, I was like, okay, that's my profession, that's what I want to do. And just kind of put my nose to the grindstone and went for it.
All right. And when did you open your practice officially?
Okay, it was in 1994 is when I officially opened my practice here in Florida.
Okay. And what kind of patients do you specialize in, and how exactly do you help them individually?
Actually, I have a wide gamut of patients. I've had a lot of different training in different places. I actually worked in a state hospital when I was an undergrad as well, which was kind of the crumblings of all the things you see on television, but not. So I got to see a lot of different disorders, and then my training has been very widely done. So I work with children all the way up to adults. My specialty areas, though, are dealing with children and adolescents, especially now kids on the autistic spectrum, Asperger's, things along those lines. Also, I deal with couples, behavioral problem adolescents, things along those lines. Adolescents and young people, young adults, that drug abuse, things along those lines. Couples counseling, as I said before, and my specialty area is not adult drug and alcohol, so I will refer those patients out. But helping-wise, my background is what we call a cognitive behavioral therapist, that thoughts can affect behavior, and behavior change can be implemented. That doesn't mean that I don't talk about other past behaviors and things like that, but that is what I hang my hat on. Although I use all kinds of different therapy techniques. I'll use existential therapy, behavioral therapy, all that sort of thing. Actually working with children, I'll work with the parents closely. I know a lot about the school system, what needs to be implemented if a kid has a reading disability, how we can help that way. So very proactive, behaviorally oriented. So it's not like you just go sit on the couch and tell me your problems. That's good, but what are we going to do about it, and how do we move forward? Same thing with adults. I'm a very here and now therapist. I'm not touchy-feely. If you want the touchy-feely guy, he's down the road. I'm very blunt. Of course, I gain and maintain a rapport with the patients. I gain that. But I think they get my trust, and I think they like that idea that I'm very blunt with them. I'm not going to pull punches, that sort of thing. So that's my therapy style.
Sounds like you actually get it done.
I do, I hope, I hope.
All right, so you're now teaching here at Eastern Florida State College. How long have you been doing that?
Well, actually for about 5 or 6. It's an adjunct position. I've been teaching here also. When I came in '89, I was an adjunct professor at FIT and continue that, and also doing some adjunct work with UCF as well. But it's just a part-time. It's my way of giving something back to the community. That's one of my APA, or American Psychological Association's tenets, is we give something back to the community. So I find that teaching it's very rewarding. I love the students, keeps me fresh. Also, I'll do some pro bono cases as well too. That's my way of giving something back. I love my profession. It's been very, very good to me, and I've made a good living out of it, so this is my way to give something back to the community.
Excellent, excellent. Now, what exact classes do you teach?
Actually 2 right now. I teach abnormal psychology and human adjustment, so a lot of fun. I enjoy the abnormal class. That's more for the majors. Human adjustment is kind of an entry-level class for people that may not be majors as well. So.
All right. Now, before we go to commercial break, I got one quick question.
Sure.
What's up with them socks?
The socks are, and Florida,
I love them.
Thank you very much. Florida is very kind of laid back, but when I was up north and actually out in California, it had to be more conservative. You'll see me with a shirt on, and usually when I'm up north and actually out in California, it was a tie and a jacket. So it was very conservative. So here in Florida, I still, you have to kind of represent the profession. But I grew up in the 70s, so what happens was that's kind of that rebellion and that sort of thing. So that's kind of my little shtick about being rebellious. So plus I work with kids, they love it, they make fun. The adults make fun, the teenagers absolutely make fun of the socks. But that's in rapport building too. You get that instant kind of rapport if they make fun of their therapist. So That's great.
Yeah, that's what's great about Florida. You do you.
You got it. You got it.
All right. We're going to go to a quick commercial break. We hope to have you return.
Sure.
We'll be back with Dr. Charles Stevens.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Mr. E. Are you having a hard time talking to the girl of your dreams due to her best friend, who's just there to knock down every advance you make because she's not getting the attention? No worries. You are not alone. Hundreds of men with great potential have faced this problem, so don't worry. You are not alone. What if I told you that I have helped over thousands of men go from Mr. Nobody to a Greek god? That's right. These men were in your shoes at one time, and they are now shining brighter than 1,000 suns. Who are we ask? We are the lost boys of the night. We put the fire in fireworks. We are the wingmen. We specialize in making you look good to the girl of your dreams while also entertaining her best friends so that you won't be interrupted. So call us at 1-800-WINGMAN. That's 1-800-WINGMAN. We are here for you.
Hello, my name is Mack, and I'm here to show you the latest fashion trend. This here is an umbrella made to look like a samurai sword. So if you want to walk in the rain with a little style or get stopped by the rent-a-cops, go on Amazon and buy one for as cheap as $26.18. Well, what are you waiting for? Buy it. You know you're going to.
Welcome back to Bob's World. All right, so we were talking about your profession. Now let's get a little further detail into it.
Sure.
You worked with Dustin Hoffman on Rain Man. How was
Yes.
that?
It was great. It was an incredible experience. It was my 15 minutes claim of fame. I've done a lot of different things since then, but that was my 15 minutes claim to fame. But it was a great experience. I really enjoyed. He is quite an individual that's very intellectual, has a great sense of humor, highly professional. It was just a wonderful experience with him. So I'd worked with a lot of different actors, basically because of the facility I worked with. I had a lot of actors' children's and that sort of thing that were there. So I got to meet a number of actors, plus fundraisers for the facility I worked with as well too. We were always kind of carted out, put in our little tuxedos and kind of did fundraising and whatnot. So I had a wealth of experience with actors. I came from a really small town, so initially I was starstruck, but I got to know the actors, and it more is about the acting. It's the profession. You know, they are very kind of focused in on that profession. Hoffman was not. You could tell that he was an intellectual. He was very, very bright, and in fact, he said to me that if he could crawl into my brain to see the world through my eyes, which I thought was very interesting. But he also had a great cynical sense of humor, sarcastic. He would say a joke, a very dry sense of humor, and then you'd kind of have to look twice to see if he was actually being funny, and then you'd get this little grin at the side of his mouth, and you'd know. And plus, I was just a psychologist, but I was a psychologist, and he stayed in touch with me afterwards, sending Christmas cards, and actually got a couple phone calls a couple years after. He said, "Hey, Doc, could I need," and he would talk to me about something, then get some advice on something, and that was kind of not personal advice, but advice for roles, which was fun. I had a good time.
How did you get that consultant job?
It was basically, I was through my job. He came to look and see to kind of get into the role. Individuals that were suffering, back then it wasn't called autism, it was, the Asperger label was then there in effect as well too. But, even it went back to the old time label, which is kind of very embarrassing, and even the profession would say it would be idiot savant was what it was called. It was actually that movie that kind of changed the thinking pattern to come out with autistic as well. But he was trying to get into the role and doing some he's very hands-on method actor kind of thing. and he was touring the facility. He had gotten some permission from the individuals, their parents, to kind of view some of the adults, not the children, but the adults in terms of how they interacted. I happened to be the psychologist for the one person he based the character on. He actually based it on 3 characters. One of them was mine. I don't know if you remember the movie where he drops the matchsticks in the diner and he knew exactly how many matchsticks were there. That was my patient. He would do that. Also with the baseball cards, that was my patient in terms of he would have the baseball cards and he would know all that. There was another segment in the movie where he talked about when you were born and what time you were born, and he would project, you know, in 15 years your birthday will be on a Tuesday, and you'd look it up, and he was absolutely correct. So wow. that was my patient. The only criticism I have of his portrayal, and this is coming from a psychologist, is he put too many things into that movie. You know, too many special qualities, savant qualities. That was the only criticism. Other than that, down pat. He just nailed it. I thought he was incredible.
That is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, looking forward ahead now.
Sure.
You have written a children's book.
Yes.
Tell us a little about it.
Yeah, it's called Casey and Humphrey, Adventures of the Shrimp Bully Bowl, and it's kind of labor of love. It's been gestating for about 14 years, but just because getting through and making sure that the book was my vision and not corporate vision or publishers and that sort of thing, even down to, you know, the colorings on the book and the size of the book. I mean, I had to fight for all of that. But, and it's about bullying. However, that sounds like a heavy-duty topic. It also talks about empowerment of women. It also talks about a theory of multiple intelligences. It's done in a Seuss rhyme style, and Dr. Seuss rhyme style, so that's kind of a light and carefree. Also the vocabulary, I purposely made it high level. I think in today's society, we're all, you know, LOL and BFF and all that sort of thing. So I wanted to use the language, and I wanted kids to grow. It actually has a glossary in it, so that the parents and the children can go back and learn some new words and that sort of thing. But there was in my practice, I work a lot with children and their parents. I couldn't find any material that I could work with kids that they would understand mental health issues, or with their parents. So what happens, I thought I happened to be at New Jersey at the shore, and if anybody's been to New Jersey in November at the shore, it's just cold and wet and damp. So I went into a library just to kind of warm up, and they had a display of all of the different sea life and whatnot. And there was particularly, I don't know why I got gravitated to, there was a picture of a shrimp, and it was being attacked by a tuna. And I kind of read about it, and the tuna was a natural predator, the shrimp, and in my crazy creative imagination, I came up with, okay, if I did a bullying, that was a way to connect to children, did it in Dr. Seuss rhyme, and then 14 years later, I have a book.
Wow.
So
that's amazing. Too many children these days, even people my age, don't have a good enough vocabulary.
I
so
totally agree.
It's about time we see that in a children's book.
Yes, thank you.
Now, in most books or movies or television shows, characters have names that are based on the writer's real-life experiences or their own family. Is that the case here?
Yes, Casey is actually, it's a story. I'm only second-generation American. My family on both backgrounds are Croatian. So my grandfather, my mother's father rather, his original name was Kesarowski. It's a Croatian name, and when he came over, it's shortened to Kesur. He actually is a strong figure in my life. He was my nanny growing up. My mother was a teacher, so he would watch me, so I learned all the Croatian curse words. It was great. So what happened was, when he came over, it was shortened to Kesur. And now my mother, when she was in college, it was in the 40s, and what happened was women were not allowed to it really wasn't pushed that women could play sports. So she had to be a cheerleader in order to play basketball. My mother is a great basketball player. In fact, we don't tell my dad this, but she taught me more moves than my dad did, but we let my dad think he taught me all my basketball moves. But what happened, she was a tip-top athlete, but yet she had to be this cheerleader in order to play basketball. So there was this duality of feminism and that sort of thing. So her nickname playing basketball was Casey. So that's one of the things. She was a strong woman, so I used that as the character. For the male, sorry I couldn't, but I do have female characters in there. So there's things like, instead of a kingdom, it's a queendom, you know, just to empower women. There's also in the book, there's a female character that is good with computers and mathematics, which is seen in psychology as women and girls aren't supposed to do mathematics and things. In fact, I had a sister who's in physics, and she grew up in the 60s. She was in her class of physics students. The professor used to go there and talk specifically to her and say, like, did you get that? Because you're not smart enough like all these guys to get it in this classroom. So that's what I wanted to push, empowering women and whatnot. I mean, it sounds like all these heavy-duty themes, but the book's fun. And that's how you get kids to learn when it's fun.
Absolutely.
So, and that's exactly what I try to do in the book.
It's truly wonderful.
Thank you.
Doing that.
Appreciate it.
All right, besides writing popular children's books, do you have any other hobbies or anything like that? Or are you always consulting actors?
No, the actor consultant work's kind of done, although they call me a couple times from Hollywood. But anyway, what happens is I love the beach. That's great. In California and in here, actually I grew up in a small town in West Virginia, but I always had to be warm and the beach. But a lot of beach activities. I surf. I also did water skiing. I still do water skiing, things like that as well. And a huge film buff like a lot of foreign films, independent films, blockbuster films. It doesn't matter what it is, but we're strong film buffs. So
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, last question.
Sure.
If you could do your life over again, would you still do psychology?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love what I do. I love my profession. I wouldn't change a thing about it. Yeah, one of the things when I had the good fortune to travel when I was young in Europe, and one of the things that I saw, we were in outside of Germany going up Neuschwanstein, which is that fairy tale castle that Disney did the castles over. But back then, this was in the 70s, there was a hill, and you had to, it was a mountain, you had to climb up it. And all of these people that had retired and saved their entire life to go up this mountain, they couldn't walk up it. So I said right there and then, my life I want to do, I don't want to look back on my life with regret. And there's this stage in psychology that calls, either you look back with gratitude of your life or you look back with regret. So I wanted to make sure that I lived my life so I didn't look back with regret. And psychology is one of those things that, that I don't regret. I love doing it. I love my profession, that sort of thing. So absolutely.
That's great.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed Dr. Charles Stevens, and stay tuned for next week. We will have the real Dustin Hoffman. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob.